Okay, started the recording. And so welcome everybody to our webinar today entitled Knowledge Management, an Opportunity for Technical Writers. I think you're going to find this is a really interesting topic. I've studied quite a bit about it and I really like the topic. And my name is Bob One. I'm a board member for the North Texas Lone Star chapter. And I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker today. Our speaker's name is Luciana Alvear Voigt, and she is a knowledge manager, and she's been responsible over a period of time for structuring companies' content strategy roadmap, as well as managing uh, documentation and legal requirement portals. She managed. She is from the United States, but she lived in Ecuador and also Brazil, and so she's trilingual technical writer. And she managed in Brazil a company called Senior Sistema, team of bilingual technical writers responsible for maintaining online help, business process manuals, implementation model, methodology documentation, and communication channel, as well as bots, which are on the internet, user manuals, training materials, 5 products. Her most recent project integrates IBM Watson's chatbot called Sarah, Senior Automated Responsive Agent with Madcap Flair. And she's managed a bilingual technical writers team with 20 professionals in 5 products: HCM, ERP, Access and Security, Corporative Performance, BI, and Workflow, CRM, being responsible maintaining online help, business process manuals, implementation technology documentation. And the way that I met her was that I had been in touch with somebody at Madcap Flair, who's their person that's in charge of their product, I guess, product roadmap or whatever. And, you know, she had told me about the person that I needed. I told her I wanted somebody that knew about Agile from a lot of different perspectives. And she said, I've got somebody, let me contact him. And so she put us in touch with each other, and we already have been doing a bunch of Agile stuff. So we asked Luciana to do something on knowledge management. So Luciana, I'm going to let you take over from here, and you can share your screen and we can go from here. Thanks a lot, Luciana.
Thank you very much, Bob. I really appreciate your words, your contact. For me, this is a very important opportunity. I'm back in the States after a long while living in South America. I really appreciate the information about my background. So at the moment, I am living in Sugarland in Houston. I've been working for the last 10 years at this IT company called Senior Sistemas. And over there, we worked a lot with Madcap Suite. We worked with Flare and Lingo. I believe that you are well aware of those softwares. I was presenting 2 papers, two study cases at MadWorld's um, summit that was in April, and Bob was very kind to call me to speak a little bit for the STC chapter, and I find this a very interesting opportunity since it is a small group. So I believe that we can share information, and I am very glad to share a little bit of my knowledge and the experience of these past years. So let me see, I'm trying to move forward. Oh, okay. Sorry. So Bob already told you about this, so I will just jump a little over this and talk about my experience. I started working in Senior as a technical writer. I was the first technical writer working for them. And so we started organizing documents and deciding what would be the software that would be better for us to use. And our main job was to build manuals and technical documentation, as I believe all of you are aware of this kind of construction. And what happened during those years, it was that gradually we were showing the company that technical information, technical documentation is a very specialized area, and it is very important for the final user. And we were able to grow. And we went from a technical documentation area to a knowledge management area. We were invited by the directors of the company to start um, looking at the company as a whole and try to integrate knowledge that was dispersed into these several areas. So today, what we will be speaking about is a little bit about what is knowledge management, some brief definitions, some common factors that I believe that they exist between technical documentation and knowledge management and knowledge bases. Um, I would like to talk to you about my experience in how I helped a group of technical writers to become knowledge management writers, and as we call in Brazil, knowledge management workers. And some new horizons that I've been exploring. As Bob said, I started working with chatbots, and this knowledge can be easily provided by these chatbots. So I believe this is an interesting thing of bringing automation and more advanced means of technology to some other things that we are already used to do, and work with knowledge and technical content. um, Bob told me that we should leave our questions for the end of the webinar, so I will leave like 10 or 15 minutes for questions. And so if you be so kind to write them down, and we can share them at the end of the presentation. So very easily, I was checking on some definitions about what is knowledge management, and I liked very much this one that was brought by Rebecca Barclay and Philip Murray. They are from Knowledge Praxis, and they defined knowledge management as a business activity that has two primary aspects. One of them, and it is very important, and I chose this definition because it is the one that it's more, it shows more clearly what we were doing. That is to treat knowledge as a component of the business activities. And it has to be in an explicit way reflected in the strategy of the company. And it would be even better if we are able to reflect it in documents as a policy, and even as best practices in different levels of the organization. It will all depend of the maturity of the organization, but we can say in a safe manner that in different grades of maturity, it shall be represented in all levels of the organization. That would be a great approach for knowledge management. And the second aspect will be to make a direct connection between the organization's actual intellectual assets and what are the results that are expected. And here we have these two concepts that will be the explicit knowledge that would be recorded, or the one that most of you guys and most of my team worked on, that is to write down or to design or to sketch or to record in a video, or in a training material, or in a web page, this knowledge. But also there's a lot of know-how that we all know stays in the brains uh, of our employees, of our collaborators. And there is it is important to capture this know-how and to bring it to be an explicit knowledge for the company and related to the objectives and the strategy that the company is looking for. Um, as I worked in Brazil, I worked very closely with the Brazilian Society of Knowledge Management, uh, that will be SBGC. And for them, the approach is that the knowledge management is a transversal area and that it will be related with a diverse quantity of disciplines, starting with strategic management, but going through a very diverse kind of topics, as you may see: organizational theory, information systems, technology management, economics, sociology, psychology, and marketing. Uh, and why do we need knowledge management? So the reasons why we work with knowledge management is it is important due to the knowledge that is retained in an organization. Um, I worked for 10 years at Senior, and several professionals have been working for them for more than 10 years, 15 years, 70 years, and most of them were very specialized. They held up a big amount of information, of knowledge, of know-how, and this all makes part of the knowledge of the company. So it is important to retain this knowledge, because eventually these professionals will move on, or they will be retired, or they will leave the company. And one of the most tragic scenarios would be to lose the knowledge that these professionals provide uh, when they leave the company. So this is one of the main reasons that knowledge management exists. And here we are talking about the importance of making knowledge management a model, a corporate model that would help the company to organize and structure and provide um, this know-how in a manner that would be easily replicated, that new employees, that new professionals working at the company could easily gain this knowledge and work with it and bring more to the company. So those are the approaches that the Brazilian Society of Knowledge Management um, they suggest, right? And they have a long time working on that, a model for knowledge management with some suggestions. This is not a rigid model, but it does have some suggestions depending on the industry that we would be applying this model. So when I was knowledge management coordinator, I proposed to work with this methodology and to find a way to define a way to work among the internal areas. We had one important challenge. This, as every software company, we had to provide user manuals and online help for our clients, but it was very common, very typical that our sales team would have one understanding of the business process, and when they sell it to the client would gain one information and understanding of the business process. But once they bought the software and they started using the software, they had difficulties between the way of using the software. Sometimes they did not find that it would attend their processes, or they would take too long to understand how to make it work. So we found out. I was responsible for this project. Um, we found out that we had at least 3 areas within the company that were working with the same information. We're trying to define the same business process for which the software was built for, And these three areas had different understandings among several procedures. And in other cases, we had the same information, but we were just like doing it three times. So the idea of this development of this model was for us to integrate this content and to use a definition of single sourcing. I believe that you all are aware of it, to make this content consistent and for us to work only once upon this content, but with this vision of all of these areas together. So um, this model, it was a very, uh, we felt very happy, let's say like that, very honored to receive a prize upon this model. The Brazilian Association of Human Resources, they have a program every year in Brazil that is called the Human Being Prize. And this Human Being Prize is an opportunity for the any worker, any collaborator of a company to propose models of working that would help people within the organization to be more connected and to be more productive, and to bring as well better revenues for the company. That would be like a consequence, but it's not something that is looked upon in this human being prize. So we received this recognition because we really were able to demonstrate a relevant contribution for the company, for the people that work there, and for the processes. We were able to reduce the time of implantation of our software in our clients. So we had several gains, not only the gain of having an integrated knowledge base that would be built by several hands at the same time and following a methodology, but we were also able to uh, demonstrate to our board and to our company that there is a possibility to reduce costs and to obtain gains when you follow a knowledge management model. And this is something that we were able to build within our technical writers team. So I do believe that there is a moment in which these professionals did this jump into what were their actual skills as technical writers and how they starting to approach the same information, the same problems that were necessary to be resolved, but with a different, an additional way of looking to this problem that would be under the eyes of the knowledge management. Um, so very briefly, what is single sourcing? I believe that all of you have this information. I brought it from Wikipedia, very simple. So it is a method to publish content uh, working on a unique source of content. And in this case, we had several professionals providing information, putting input in this knowledge base, and and obtaining a final result that could be different outputs. We could have the same information available in a training material or in a website or on our online help. And all of them will be showing the same information. It, this means that it is correct, that it is accurate, that all of those outputs are showing the same information, the same core information, but they will be adding some specifics. If it depends on a training material, then it will have some information that will only go for those training materials, but the business process will be the same. So as it says here, the labor intensive and expensive work of editing that is needed. All of you know this, do you, we work with this every day, all of days of our lives, right? So the chance to have this source document that can be stored in only one place and reused, and that we will be continuously uh, providing more information to that manual, as long as the software also is suffering modifications and more implementations. This is a graphic design of our knowledge base. So as I explained earlier, our our objective was to obtain a unified process of our business processes that we were attending with the software. In this case, we had three areas working together. It was the knowledge management area, the corporate university, and the sales area, the implementation and sales area. So we captured information from these three areas. We defined a unique business model. And once we had this very clear, we were even able to work upon pricing and the sales structure. In this presentation, I'm not going to focus on prices and sales structure, but I just wanted to let you know that it was something that um, was also able due to this knowledge model. And from the business model, we were able to provide a very important quantity of um, artifacts, of documents for our internal teams and also for our clients and for our network that would, through the university, through the corporate university, would start studying and having better understanding of the softwares. So the first artifact that we worked with was the process documentation. So as I told you, we were not focusing on field by field online help. In this case, our interest was into develop the documentation of the whole process, and from there we were able to develop other outputs like training courses, some workbooks, comprehension exercises. We even have had a certification program for vendors and recorded classes. We also worked with some outputs that were provided for our development teams. So checklists and guides that would follow the process documented. And we also had work for testing. In this case, we had some software deployment documents that would be like testing spreadsheets and some parameter settings and so on. So this is a very simple way of putting out that once we did this work of defining a knowledge model, and we had our objective very clear, that what we needed was a unique business process view from the company, uh, and with the correct software, with the adequate software and architecture, we were able to produce all of this. And as you know, software is on a daily basis changing. This company works with deployments of the product, weekly deployments. So we had our team of technical writers in a daily manner actualizing this information. So single sourcing was a must for this, for the success of this knowledge management model. As I told you, we were recognized with this Premio Ser Humano, this human being prize. And what was our model? We started at the very conception of the product, and we were able to bring our technical writers to work in the project since the very beginning, since the product conception. So they would help to organize knowledge and to understand what kind of information would be needed for each of our client segments, and if it was a material for the university or if it was a material for an internal collaborator or implementation team. And finally, we have the service optimization team, and all of these gains that are shown in the slide, like productivity gains in projects that were more than 40%, productivity gains in the confection, in the production of these workbooks was more than 15%. And this win tax indicator, that is an indicator of the benefits for our clients, those were huge because we were able to simplify our implantation process. And our client, the experience that they had was very nice because uh, it all seemed very coherent. Like you receive you receive a salesperson from the company that will present a business model, and then you can go onto their website and access this. All of this documentation is online for free, so they could access the documentation and clearly understand what they are looking for. And so this is just roughly how we organize this information, and I would like to share it with you in the means of the idea of how we worked over there in Brazil and the recognition that we received for this kind of development. Some lessons that we learned in this process. First of all, detachment. And why do I say that? As you remember, we're talking about at least 3 areas within the company that are they hold the same information. Each of these areas believe that their business process model is the correct one. And when you start working with knowledge management, there is a lot of back and forward, and until we finally defined and were clear of what is just a step-by-step instruction and what is actually a business process. And this development, it had to be collective. So it might take a longer time, but it is uh, much richer, and people felt empowered by this, and they gained a lot of knowledge as well. So this is vital. We worked always with proofs of concept. So we started with a small process. We made the process of ideation, prototype, and then we started writing. And here, infrastructure, it is critical. So as Bob already shared, we worked with Flare and Madcap because they have a very strong single sourcing uh, architecture, and we use that. And finally, it is very important to plan ahead what is the structure of your artifacts, what would be the material that will be delivering to your audiences, and what kind of content will be in this material. What were the major gains that we identified? The first one is a faster knowledge update for everybody, because as our technical writers belong to development team, they were able to provide with the most actual information for our teams that are sales teams or that are the university, that usually would receive that information only at the end of the deployment. And now they were receiving this information earlier and were able to contribute for the construction of the solution itself. Um, of course, to have a knowledge base unified and in single sourcing, that's the main gain. Uh, we were able to turn our areas more productive, and the quality of the training and the documentation provided for this training was better than before, and we received very good feedbacks over them. And last but not least, the most important thing for us was the experience that our clients started to have, because they perceived that the content was very well structured, that it was easy to find, that it all makes sense, and that was great. So why do I think that we have some specific and some common factors among or between technical documentation and knowledge bases or knowledge management? Uh, we all know that in several industry it is very important. Technical documentation is very well positioned and is recognized as very important for technical teams. As a matter of fact, here in Houston, I've been able to speak with oil and gas companies and to understand how they are working with content, and it is very relevant. The Department of Technical Documentation. Specialized professionals work as technical writers. So I've seen uh, technical writers that are highly specialized in segments or in industries, and this is very important in terms of the quality of the knowledge that they have and that they share, right? Technical content is crucial for strategic companies, for especially when we are talking about knowledge retention. So those are things that I believe that can be viewed at as common factors. A technical content management, um, it has to be it has to guarantee accurate and up-to-date technical documentation, and this is essential for all of the efforts of support and technical assistance for final clients. I was reading an article of Dave Davis. He's a researcher on information management, and he was talking about the evolution of knowledge management, and that in some point in our late history, let's say like that, uh, it kind of fell off the radar, as he puts it here, in the early 2000s. So what I've seen is that sorry is that this approach is changing, and we are seeing that nowadays knowledge managers, they are very differently positioned in the company. Maybe we don't have many knowledge management professionals, but I've seen this, and I agree with what Dave is putting here, that knowledge management managers today are positioned to move the knowledge supply chain along more efficiently than ever before. And um, I do believe that the technical writer has to be a part of the conception of the product in order to understand clearly how to document the business process from a software's point of view. And this is very important from the knowledge management point of view. Every team, every development team, when we're talking about software, but I don't think it would be different if we're talking about oil and gas or other areas, uh, that we should have the opportunity to be the closest to conception as possible. And now I would like to speak a little bit about New Horizons. I've been reading this, and I highly recommend this article. It is from McKinsey, a future that works, automation, employment, and productivity. And we are all of us reading about this every day. In this study, McKinsey says that 5% of all professional activities that exist today will be completely eliminated due to automation. So sometimes we listen like, oh, the robots will take control over our work, and we will have no more work. And here we have some data collected and analyzed, and I find it very, very reasonable, because when we read here, like 60% of all professions will have at least 30% of its tasks automated. I've lived that through my professional life, and I believe you did as well. I was graduated from high school, from a technical high school, as a bilingual secretary. And when I started working, like a couple of years after I graduated from high school, I was studying, I was in college, and I was working as a secretary. And one day, my boss just told me that he didn't need me to take any notes anymore, because he would write his own emails and send his own emails. So instantly, there was no need for the work that I was doing. And I've been going through my professional life and seeing this happening. And more, we have lots of tasks that are automated, and that eventually that is also good for us, because that will leave us space to be more productive and to dedicate our time for intellectual activities that would be a little more challenging than those that usually are automated. But it is a fact that we are living this moment in history. And as this last sentence that I captured from this article, this means that actually we will have to rethink our educational systems, not only in South America, I believe that over here as well. And recruitment and retention of talents will have to change accordingly. Here we have a slide that reflects some information of this study by McKinsey, talking about automation, the thing that we were talking just right now. Like 5% of occupations consist of activity that are 100% automatable, and that's a fact. And what are the activities that have the highest automation potential? Here we have some activities related with predictable physical activities, data processing, data collecting, and several times I find that technical writers are are working on this processing data and collecting data. And maybe there is a different approach that we can give to these professionals, and bring also a very much professional approach to our knowledge bases, rethinking what is the objective of this kind of content. Um, well, I will leave this slide just a little more for you to take a look on it. As you can see, just the same information that I was speaking previously, about 60% of occupations will have at least 30% of the activities able to be automatable. And we are experiencing that nowadays with chatbots that are everywhere, right? So the scale of shifts in the labor force over many decades that automation technologies can unleash is of a similar order of magnitude to the long-term technology-enabled shifts in the developed countries when we're talking about the 20th century. So this is something that I took from this article. And I found it interesting that the analysis brought that there was not a result of long-term mass unemployment due to that, but it was definitely it was changing gradually, and agricultural and many other industrial sectors change through automation. And we know that we will go on with these changes, only that they will be every day faster and faster. So as as McKinsey say, we cannot definitely say whether historical precedent will be upheld this time, but their analysis shows that humans will still be needed in the workforce, thanks God. And the total productivity gains we estimate will come about only if people work alongside with machines. That's something that we already do, but it will become more intense. So, automation, as McKinsey Global Institute shows, will give business leaders opportunities to improve the performance of their companies, to enter new markets, and they will need to rethink and rework the processes of the organizations. Here we have from the same study, I brought this chart. It has some information about occupations that are, are more likely to be automated. And I believe this is something that we are seeing every day. So I've also been a teacher. So sometimes when I read this, I get a little worried about it, but on the other hand, I see how my son is going to school and learning a lot of things with a lot of automated processes, and the teachers are constantly reinventing themselves and bringing new knowledge and or new approaches to understand this knowledge. So the least it will make us rethink the way that we work. We have several activities that today they are automated and that they will continue in that scale, like answering questions about products and services, mainly answering several times the same questions. And here is where automation plays an excellent part. To demonstrate some product features is also important. Uh, we can even buy several things without the need of the human interaction in that activity. But it is important, and this is something that I would like to bring to our reflection, that this knowledge management and this knowledge that people have, it has to be built before the automation, and it has to be constantly taken care of. Uh, Bots aren't intelligent. Uh, the ones that are intelligent is the human being, and the chatbot, the technology will help to gain scale and to provide more access and facilitate access to this knowledge that is from the humans, right? um, okay, I'm almost on my last slides. I would like to bring some thoughts about Cesar Taurion. He is a Brazilian professional reference of artificial intelligence in Brazil, and he's been helping Brazilian companies to understand that HR will also have to reinvent itself, and will have to develop new strategies and tools for recruitment, because now we have to think of different ways of combining machines and humans, and the way that the machine can potentialize and help a human to grow exponentially with its deliveries. Um, so that was my last slide. Here, if you allow me, I would like to talk a little bit about my company. I am working with knowledge management for chatbots, artificial intelligence. My company is TECHKNOBOT. And as you may read, I believe it is needless to say that chatbots are the newest interface for conversations between customers and users. We're seeing this every day, and an important resource for business revenue efficiency is to reduce customer support and customer assistance fixed costs. And we proved, because all of this knowledge management, we were able to integrate it with a chatbot. So we were able to develop other kind of projects from this knowledge management, and all of this was done with technical writers. So I do believe that there is there are several opportunities for these professionals, and that they have to be open-minded and try to gain a different perspective about maybe some concepts that might be thought to be too old, but that they are some skills that are needed nowadays if we're talking about automation. And I understand that each company will have its main reasons to use a chatbot, but we know that when it is applied for reducing customer service, we are able to offer great value to our customers because we'll be directly reducing hourly fixed costs. So here we have a, a direct benefit from the companies, from the revenue point of view, but it also provides a new perspective for the technical writer and the way that he can approach his or her work, and also to provide automation also helps this those teams of customer service, because they are able to start working or to continue working on complex um, more complex challenges, and not only to be repeating the same kind of answers like a chatbot would do. Um, this is my last slide. I thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was time flew, and in my slide I have some links that might be helpful. I believe that we can leave them for you to check afterwards, and please feel free to send me your thoughts or to share some questions if you may. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luciana, for a fantastic presentation. And I will send, if you will send me that slide deck, I will send that out to everybody. Also, your contact information, uh, however you want to share that. So we'll get that information from you. And I do have a question right off the bat. I mean, could you tell us what you think if you're an existing technical writer, and you've got experience? What are there jobs out there that you could go work in knowledge management as a knowledge management worker of some kind if you have technical writing experience?
Okay, here in the States, I've been searching about job opportunities, and I've seen um, several interesting things. I've seen that different from what I saw in Brazil. Over here, technical writers have opportunities of working in very specialized niches, like writing for a magazine or writing just a text, a small text for an email or email sales, or more complex content that would be for the oil and gas or for um, the health area. So I find that very interesting because it brings an opportunity to specialize. And that was something that I always talked with my technical writers about, that because at some point in their career they felt that they were too generalists, and then the other moment others will be feeling that they are too specialist and that they will lack opportunities for them if they are too concentrated on specializing themselves, and the other way as well. So for me, it is always an exercise of equilibrium. You have to develop some general skills that will fit for any segment, any industry, and at the same time, it is interesting for you to develop something that is specialized, or several small specialized things.
But you
On
do think that
knowledge,
there's some jobs out there for knowledge workers that technical writers could fill, or what?
I think that there are opportunities, but I believe that the technical writer will have to sell himself or herself about this topic, because I think that many companies will not understand this approach or will not have this approach. And but I do believe it's something that you can demonstrate that there are gains, and that because knowledge management is not a work that starts from one day, and it's not a short term work. And companies will have to commit to it and will have to believe that it is important to have registered knowledge. And I believe that the best professional to work with this is a technical writer.
Okay, let me ask you this question. I've got a question that Agnes also asking a similar question. Is the only knowledge management software that you used at that company, was it Madcap Flare? Is that what you used?
Yes, we used Madcap Flare, and that was
Okay,
my presentation during their summit.
okay.
We worked with
So,
Madcap Flare for the last 8 years, and we've been building this knowledge base for a long
right.
time. Yeah.
So, Agnes had a question. Uh, she wants to know, did the technical writers who worked on your team, did they have prior knowledge of CMS or database or HTML coding?
Yes.
Do you want to say anything more about that?
We we had to. I used to hire technical writers that would have at least experience with H, HTML, CSS, and mostly they didn't have experience with the software, but we would train them in the software. We had best practices defined, and templates and models for our documents. uh, we work with single sourcing, so this was very important. We had to share how is the architecture of this knowledge base within all of the members. But sometimes I found a professional that was not strong with HTML, but would be strong in the knowledge of the content that we would need to build. So I found it easier to train them on HTML and to bring this professional that knew about the segment and knew how to write.
Okay. Well, that makes it good because a lot of technical writers have switched to different content and they can learn it quickly. So Esther had a question. Her question was, how do you help management understand that documentation and knowledge management is a company asset rather than a company overhead?
It wasn't easy. I was the first technical writer hired for this position. So we were talking about a company with 600 developers and one technical writer. So I wouldn't work over all of those contents. Uh, we had a lot of content that was built originally by the development team. But one thing that was very important was to show things, not only to speak about them. So we started building these manuals in a different way, and we will have to show them. We decided to move out from PDF and put it all on the website, and with no authentication needed. So this was a very good way of showing our content for our final users. And then we started putting analytics and started thinking of it as a web development. And we started proving to the board of directors that our clients were actually using the content, and that as they use this content, they would gain more confidence in using the tools, and they would give us feedback. And later on, we were able to work in a project where we connected the knowledge base with the chatbot. And the chatbot provided very easily for our final clients the answers to their doubts. So they didn't need to call an attendant to find information. They were able to find very complex content through our chatbot. And
Okay.
that is also money. So
Yeah,
always you will have to show it, you will have to show the money.
okay. Here's a question that Beth had. When you were talking about three different groups in the company, sales and some of the other groups, when you were implementing this knowledge management, can you share some of the challenges you had when trying to get all the different groups in the company to buy into the knowledge management, and what helped them to finally accept the knowledge management and buy into it?
Yes, that wasn't easy as well. No, technical writers, they are, how can I put it in an easy way? We are very picky, right? We want the things well done. We want information accurate. And so it was difficult for us because we have more like a low profile if you compare us with vendors or a sales area. And they really believed that their processes were correct and they were accurate. But we had the final client, and he could demonstrate that wasn't right, that we had a lot of things to do on knowledge management. So it was, we had several meetings. I think that the whole process took us about something around 5 to 6 months for us to establish this proof of concept. And the results of this proof of concept were the ones that allowed us to go on, because we as we prepared the training materials and the implementation materials and the final documentation, working these three areas together, and we went to implanting this new model in the client, then we found out that we reduced significantly the hours of implantation. And the feedback from the client was excellent. And the professional that was doing the implantation also, it was very easy for it. So that kind of feedback was the one that helped us to go on.
Thank you very much, and especially thank you for mentioning the proof of concept part of it. So Zora has a question. Can you give an example of how a business model was leveraged to become training material or a specific piece of documentation?
Yes, as we used Flare, I don't know if you're all uh, aware of it, but that's a very strong tool for single sourcing. So we will have like 3 or 4 technical writers working on a human capital management solution, and making part of 4 different agile cells that were developing this. And each of them will have to put information into Flare. And there is a technical functionality that's called conditional tag. This conditional tag is a feature of Flare where you can select what kind of information you want to be presented in one kind of output or another. So you are able to provide um, documents in PDF format, or you can provide a web page, or you can provide a Word document. And with these conditional tags, we will choose what kind of information should appear in each of them. But for the technical writer, everything is in only one place. And the technical writer is able to read what is the material that will go for a training document or for a vendor's document. So the technical writer had to expand the way that he taught, and the way that he worked with content, in order to understand what should go for a training material and what should stay on the website and what should go for implementation services team. So they also learned a lot.
Thank you very much. Well, one quick question. So in technical writing, you can actually get a master's degree to train to be a technical writer. or you can, a lot of people are SMEs and they become technical writers, but what about in knowledge management? Is there training, is there education, is there certification and that kind of thing?
Here in the States, I haven't seen something on it yet. Back in Brazil, it was most on certifications. From what I've seen here, I've also seen that mostly would be like certifications or courses.
Okay, and then we had one other question that Esther had. She wanted to know, did you guys have, did your technical writers and your knowledge worker team, did they have to become SMEs or did they use SMEs to provide the content?
I don't understand SMEs.
Well, SME is somebody that's an expert at a particular thing. You know, it means
Oh, okay.
subject matter expert.
Subject matter expert. Okay, yes. Uh, I had a couple of subject matter experts, yes. But when I hired them, I was more looking for some of these general skills. But yes, we did needed a couple of subject
But,
matter aspects because
but
there
did,
were
did your generalists have to become subject matter experts or not?
um
You know, the people that weren't subject matter experts to begin with, did they have to
yeah,
become, or did they just use other people to get the information from?
we had both situations, but
Okay,
I believe that at least one of them became very specialized,
okay.
even though
So
he
some people started
maintained.
out as a generalist and become specialists, and some
Yeah,
people didn't become specialists, and other people came in as specialists and became knowledge workers,
yeah,
technical writers. Okay. Well, I
yeah.
just wanted to say thank you very much, Luciana, for the presentation. It was absolutely fantastic. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for the opportunity. And well, I'll send you later if you're okay. I'll send you my website. I'm building it right now, so I don't have it online yet. But if you may, I can send it afterwards. And it was a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you very much again.
And so you'll share with me the slide deck that you used and so forth, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then we'll talk to you really soon, like, really soon. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Luciana.
Thank you very much. Bye
All
bye.
right.
Have
Bye-bye.
a great day.